Very good. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. The time is 6:01 p.m. We do have a quorum present both in the combination of the meeting room and via Zoom. So I'd like to call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Before I begin, I just wanted to mention that I've had comments that sometimes for folks on Zoom, it's difficult for them to know who is speaking in the meeting room. So I'm going to try to do my best when I acknowledge somebody to speak to state their name, but then also ask the speaker also to state their name, or perhaps even the town that they come from, just so that folks on Zoom, if they can't actually see you, know who is speaking, and for newer commissioners might also be able to understand what town is being represented when those comments are being made. Do our best to remember that. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the agenda itself. Are there any requests for changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll follow the agenda as presented in the board packet. Second item on the agenda is the public comment period. Are there any members of the public present in the meeting room via Zoom or via telephone who wish to address the Board of Commissioners tonight? And I can state for the record, there are no members of the public present in the board meeting room.
There's no members of the public on Zoom.
Very good. And if anybody is by phone would like to identify themselves and ask a question? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda consisting of the minutes of the October 22nd, 2025 board meeting, the program update memos, and the finance report, standard format that we have in all of our board packets. Any requests to remove an item from the consent agenda? That's it.
Just a question. So if there's just a typo,
you can just let me know.
Okay.
And we will fix it for the formal accepted minutes. And you can know, and for everyone's information too, if you do spot it when you're reading it ahead of time, you can always email back to me and to the assistant secretary, and then we can make note like in the meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Consider those kind of housekeeping, non-substantive
Perfect.
questions or
Thank you.
issues that don't need to take our time
Thank
tonight.
you.
But Betsy, thank you very much for asking the question. Again, are there any requests to remove an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Hearing none, the items in the consent agenda will be accepted as presented. We're now on to item number 4, which is the board election for an assistant secretary. I'm going to turn it over to our executive director, Sarah, to start us on this process here.
Very good, thank you. So at the October 22nd, 2025 Board of Commissioners meeting, the need for an assistant secretary to the board was discussed. So the board at that meeting determined that they should create the position of assistant secretary as an officer of the board, and that is allowed in the CSWD charter, and that we would hold an election for that position at the next meeting, which is tonight. So there is a resolution to create the position, and that resolution is required by Article 3, Section 1, election in the charter. And Paul, I can read that resolution if you like. Be it resolved, the board finds it appropriate and necessary to elect an assistant secretary to conduct the business of the district.
Would any commissioner care to move that resolution? Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Winooski.
Thank you very much. Been moved and seconded that we create the position of assistant secretary. Is there any discussion or are there any questions on the motion? I guess I do have a question. We're going to, if the vote is in the affirmative and we create the position down the road, if it's determined that we don't really need to fill the position, the position would still exist.
Correct.
As an authorized position, but it could remain vacant.
It could.
Very good. Thank you for that clarification.
Follow-up question.
Yes, Bryn.
Will we have a second motion to accept a nomination?
Correct. That would be
Yes.
the next step for an actual election. Just wanted to make sure we first created the position and that we're very clear
Okay.
on the steps and the procedures, making sure that should we elect an assistant secretary, it's all done properly.
Great.
If there are no other questions or discussion on the motion to create the position as of Assistant Secretary, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Position of Assistant Secretary has now been created, and let's move on then to part B of this, which is nominations. And again, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So nominations were sought for the position, and the nominations received as of November 7, 2025 was one, Betsy Perea of Milton. At this point, Paul, we can ask if there are any other nominations from the floor, either self-nominations or someone wanting to nominate a different person on their behalf.
Well, the floor is now open if any commissioner would care to nominate themselves or another commissioner for the position of Assistant Secretary. I can only say if you nominate somebody other than yourself, that nomination would be subject to the acceptance or willingness of the nominee to actually be considered in the election. Thomas, your hand is up.
Yes, if I may make just a point of clarifications and suggestion for the board's consideration. All officers are annually elected as part of that. And so since the assistant secretary would be considered an officer of the district, I think my suggestion is that just the board be aware that I believe that the position would run through the next annual election of officers. And to the point earlier, I think you're creating the position, so it could either be filled at the next annual meeting of the board or left vacant. But I just thought I'd like to make that clarification for the board.
Right, so the position is not a one-year term. It is through the end of the fiscal, or to the next annual organizational meeting, which tends to be the fourth Wednesday of June.
So again, we have one nominee on the floor. Are there any other nominations to be considered tonight? Hearing none, we have one nominee. I think we can proceed.
Make a motion to close nominations.
Oh, sorry. We have a motion to close nominations.
So moved, Winooski.
Thank you.
South Burlington.
It's been moved and seconded that we close nominations. All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nominations are now closed. We do have one nominee for the position of Assistant Secretary. That is Betsy, I'm sorry, Perret or Perret?
Correct.
Perret. Sorry. So again, we have one nominee, Betsy Perret.
Move to accept the nomination of Betsy Perea for the position of Assistant Secretary through to the next annual meeting.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second? We moved and seconded that we accept the nomination and I believe vote on the nominee is the intent of that motion.
Yes.
Correct. All those in favor of voting for Betsy Perret for the position of Assistant Secretary from now through until the next organizational meeting in June 2026, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? I declare Betsy Perret is now our Assistant Secretary. Thank you very much.
I'll keep my acceptance speech short.
This is wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
We are now ready to move on to item number 5, which is the fiscal year 27 draft budget. I believe we'll turn this directly over to John Valparta, our Director of Finance, who can walk us through this. And this is in the board packet, beginning on page, not sure. 18.
I would call the board's attention really to the memo we put together that explains all the highlights. The presentation in the packet is a little awkward when I take great big spreadsheets and try to get them onto a PDF. But the key thing that I think the board should know is the budget process is a little different this year. If you folks will recall, we stopped using that Oracle product, NSPV, saved some money, and what I did was go and create a series of spreadsheets that was really predicated on historical trends with some assumptions sort of layered on top of that. And then we got input from all the ops folks. And then Sarah and I looked at it and made some last minute tweaks. And we have this budget. So all the spreadsheets then kind of get aggregated, and I've imported those into NetSuite. And so what we see in those kind of awkward PDFs is the NetSuite output, which actually looks nice if you could see it on the screen and in Excel, right, on a large screen. I think this is gonna give us a more workable budget. It's easier for me to go back into what we did and say, oh, there's the assumption we made. And what's actually coming true, do we adjust to this? It was really hard to do that with the old process. So I'm hopeful that this is a much better process. Sarah, you took part in this. I didn't hear any negative feedback from the ops folks on how to use the tool I created. A bit of a learning curve. You know, I found some logic errors as I went through this and thought, oh, geez, I need to do that a little bit differently. Just in terms of being able to make some minor changes that came about and importing that into NetSuite in an efficient way. And I think I've got just about all that worked out. So as we move forward, this I think will be an even smoother, faster process. And I'm pretty confident we're going to get a more workable budget that will allow some better analysis as we see some of these variations and things changing. A budget should be, it really should be a learning tool for us, right? We should say, this is what we think is going to happen. And then as we go through actuals, be looking at that and saying, well, that didn't happen, here's why. And is there something that we should do to adjust for that? So I guess we just go through the memo and hit some of the highlights on some of the assumptions and then put it out for question.
That's fine. Before we do that, just for the benefit of newer commissioners, just to kind of explain the process or why this is before us right now,
Right,
and then
so
what the next steps are.
I'll jump in on that. So our charter requires us to prepare, requires the board to prepare its annual budget for the following fiscal year, not later than December 1st. And it does seem very early in the process to do that. However, the rationale is so that if CSWD is proposing any municipal assessments or any fees that would impact our member towns, that the members have that information well in advance of town meeting day in March, which is when generally our member cities and towns bring their budgets to their voters. So that is the rationale for the December 1st deadline for this board to prepare a proposed budget. And so that is what this is before you right now. It is draft. It will be worked on again and continue to be refined. The Finance Committee will receive an updated draft budget to review at their February meeting. We will be meeting for an entire day. We've done this for the past couple of years, and it works very well. Paul can confirm, and Rick. And so the Finance Committee will review this budget as revised in that day. And then if they do not have significant revisions, then the full board will receive that reviewed budget in the March meeting. We are also required to hold a public hearing on the proposed budget not later than January 31st. That public hearing has, as part of past practice, been held at the January full board meeting. So we would do the same thing that we tend to do with other public hearings, hold that public hearing first, and then go into the full board meeting immediately following. So that's why it may seem like it's quite far away, but that is the reason that we need to do it according to this timeline. And then once the full board receives the full draft budget, you are not actually approving the budget. You are authorizing the budget to be distributed to each member city and town, and then each legislative body of that member city and town then authorizes the budget for adoption. So it will go to your city council or your select board, and each member city and town has one vote. So it's not weighted as our votes here are. It is 1 for 1. And we need to get a simple majority in order for our budget to be adopted. So that means once 10 of our communities have voted in the affirmative, then the budget is considered adopted for the next fiscal year.
Great, thank you. And also, I think it was implicit in that, and it's stated here, that tonight the action request is really to acknowledge receipt of the budget.
Correct, for further development through the normal budget process.
Betsy, you have a question?
Yes, so for when the town gets it, so the select board or city council, do you initiate with the town manager or do we have a role in that?
Yes, so Amy Jewell will, or perhaps Jess will reach out to all the city clerks
Okay,
and town clerks, and we request to be put onto the agenda.
okay.
And so, because a lot of y'all meet on a Monday or a Wednesday,
Oh,
it
there
means
were
I tend to
Mondays.
be, yeah, I tend to be loaded up on Mondays and Wednesdays. The district has 45 days from the date when the board says, yes, we're going to send this out, to meet with all of our member towns. Really, it's 45 days for the towns to vote. If they do not vote on it, it then counts as approval. So they can take action or not take action. If they take action and they disapprove the budget, they then are required in charter to, in writing, communicate to the board, this board, specific items that they wish to see changed. So there's got to be, line item number 522.
Okay.
We want that changed. Generally, when legislative bodies have disapproved the budget, has been on more philosophical reasons, and they have not communicated to us anything that actually needs to be changed. So at that point, it becomes, again, no action. So it is deemed accepted.
So Betsy Pray, Milton. So we have a new town manager. And so we had a select board meeting on Monday during the day. It was a special meeting to start talking about the FY 2027 budget. So they're already thinking about it. So it could be, if your Mondays are all stacked up, you might want to get to Milton earlier because they're thinking about 2027 already.
So we will communicate to all the cities and towns that we are not budgeting for municipal assessment, and that's really what they're concerned about.
Right.
So because there's really no other fee aside from Burlington and Westford, where our fee changes affect the local budget.
Okay.
We would tend to communicate to Williston as well, that if there's any changes in what we're going to be paying to Williston or South Burlington for impact fees. But as far as what you all need to know for your assessments, that is also what the public hearing is about too, because we have to publish the budget, and it would be in there, but we would just let them know way ahead of time. And sometimes they also reach out to us to say, hey, is there any assessment coming?
Okay.
And we would just confirm, particularly this year, no. So what happens is, again, the legislative bodies will receive the budget packet, they receive the budget ahead of their meetings, and there are always great questions. So it's a great opportunity to have conversations. And so because we'll be meeting most likely in March, you will already have had your town meeting day. So your budget's already set.
Okay.
So that's why communicating to them now, as you're indicating, is important, so that they've got that in mind,
Okay.
everything they need to do.
Thank you for explaining.
Sure.
First time.
Absolutely.
And before I get to you, David, just the expectation of commissioners, really, the burden is really on staff
Okay.
to prepare and present the budget.
Mhm.
Expectation and hope is that when Sarah meets with your select board, that you would be present at that.
Of course,
too.
yeah.
Mhm.
But that's one of your primary obligations in this.
And commissioners can certainly feel free to communicate, our intention that we are not proposing a municipal assessment. You can let your town manager, your city manager know,
Okay,
tomorrow. I mean, that's
Okay.
totally fine.
great.
So there's no need to wait for me to do that.
Okay.
David Howell from Williston.
I'm just curious, how often is there a municipal assessment, like historically?
It has been quite some time. Oh, gosh, Paul, the
I think
1990s?
the first 3 years we had an
We
assessment.
did. It
and
was at
so
least
after
3,
that,
if
it
not
just
more,
become
the
one.
1990s.
So, that was right after the creation of solid waste district, so there was a need for some funding.
Mhm.
But then we became self-sufficient with fees and things like that.
Yeah, and generally, if we were going to, if the need for an assessment would be if we are unable to pay long-term debt.
Yeah.
So then we would be passing some of that on to our municipalities, and we have not had reason for that. And the way we budget, we are budgeting so as to not have to do that. Yeah, it's been quite some time.
Excellent.
So any questions about this preamble then to John's deeper presentation on the budget? But it's important to get this kind of establish the baseline of what we are to expect in this process. So if there are no further questions, then John, we'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, so as we've mentioned already, the process whereby we created this budget is quite different than what it was in the past. Started with our historic trends, our what I call seasonality over the past 3 years, and then laid some assumptions over top of those. So some of those key assumptions are basically using a 4% inflation factor is the label I have in my spreadsheets, covering it. It's a cost of living increase, it's impacting fuel, utilities, material management. Almost any of our expenses are going up by 4%, with a couple of exceptions. Health insurance, we've bumped up by 10%. These numbers at this point are kind of a guess. I do the research that I can and come up with a number, run it by Amy and run it by Sarah, and kind of tweak some of the other expenses and the increases also by some of the ops folks. And my intent is, as we go through time, we'll take a look at what's going on with CPI. If 4% is anywhere close, we'll leave it alone. If not, we'll make an adjustment. If we have some better information on what health insurance is doing, we'll have to make an adjustment there. So those are sort of the external drivers and assumptions that we have baked in. Then we got some sort of internal assumptions coming from the ops folks. We have our MRF tip fee that we're talking about going from 90 to 95. We've also worked to adjust the volumes coming into the MRF, as we've talked about at the finance committee. You see some of the inbound volumes coming down. If I remember, I think it's a 3% reduction. So basically I took FY25 volume and said, well, if the Q1 26 trend continues, we're gonna have a 3% reduction in volume. So we reduced the volume by that 3% and applied the tip fee. And I'm kind of mixing some things with the MRF. Now I'm mixing up a little bit of the material sales with the tip fee, but we're seeing the same kind of volume trend run through there. It seems to be a little bit delayed on the material sales because, right, the inbound stuff has to be processed and then it goes out. Again, we talked a little bit about that at the finance committee. We made some adjustments at the ORF, the fees going up there. It's basically a 5.7% increase on the fee. I think that is also reaction to what we see happening with volumes there. The DOC is we're not changing any of the pricing on the bags, but as we discussed also at the finance committee, what we're seeing is a growing number of trips and a higher dollar per trip. Don't really know what the makeup is of the materials coming in, but we certainly are seeing more traffic come across the, come into the yard. So we've effectively adjusted the revenue up by 4% to try to capture that increase. Material sales is where we started talking about the changing ACR and the changing volumes at the MRF.
And ACR stands for
Average commodity rate.
Thank you.
the sales price.
It's a blended price of value of all of the materials that we sell out of the materials recycling facility.
Thank you.
So for Q1 26, we saw an ACR of 72. And the year prior, it was at 110. Who knows where this is going, but we've budgeted 75 for the ACR and made an adjustment to the volumes coming in as well, also based on the trends that we saw. That's got to be just related to the overall macro economy. So who knows where that will go, but I've highlighted that in my quarterly report as one of the things we really need to keep an eye on. If volumes keep going down and ACR keeps going down, we may have to try to figure out how to replace some of that revenue. but too early to tell at this point. Other revenue is investments. We've made some tweaks on there, assuming a little bit of a lower interest rate, and that's just really a very average number we put up. It's not like I have a great deal of analysis behind that to then calculate a number. The solid waste management fee. Again, we're looking at volumes going down somewhere in the 3%, but our fee, our solid waste management fee, we're expecting will go up by 4.8% is what we saw in the, I think we're using the garbage index. That brings it from 40 to 41.92. So we reduced the tonnage, but then applied the higher rate, and that's how we arrived at our revenue. Again, we'll have to take a look at that as we get more info and have better insight as to what that index might be doing. I think we'll have to do some comparison between CPI or the garbage index and make adjustments throughout as we get more info. The big challenge here is we're trying to budget for 18 months out. It's hard, but those are the assumptions that are baked in. And like I was saying before, this is a process I've used elsewhere, and we've gotten really close to budgets to actual. So I'm hoping we're going to see the same kind of result. I'm hoping to see that our variances aren't more than 3% anywhere without some great big event happening. Any questions on?
Well, I want to kind of open up the discussion a little bit. I think, done a great job of identifying both the external and internal key drivers. It's really nice to see them here. I'd like to bring a little bit of focus primarily on the internal drivers, just to help the board get a better feel for it, because there are some changes in here that I think we all need to be aware of and consider, as this budget is further developed. But
right. So as far as the internal drivers, the materials recycling facility TIFI increase, again, is based on regional market rates. And for us, the regional market is Rutland. So when we asked what the current TIFI at the Rutland MRF was about a couple of weeks ago, it was $100, looking to get up to $110. They are not anticipating being lower than $100 next year.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but for clarification, for the benefit of all the commissioners, the Rutland MRF is a privately owned
Correct.
entity that has the ability to change its pricing.
On a weekly basis, if they would like to.
And our habit and practice is that our tip fee.
We like to keep it steady for the year, which means that, we are not as flexible or fluid in responding to ups and downs in the average commodity rate. And that's why it's going to be MRF. Can make those adjustments, because they'll look at the ACR from the previous month, and then they'll adjust their tip fee accordingly up or down. We don't do that. We like to have a steady Eddie rate for our customers, particularly for our municipal customers, because again, they pass their budget once a year like we do. So we don't like to have that volatility in that rate. So that means sometimes we're ahead, sometimes we're behind. We tend to average out. So that is the key difference between a municipal MRF and a private/merchant MRF. But we do know that the private MRF will be at the very least at 100. More likely they'll be at $110 a ton. So we feel comfortable that going to 95 is still keeping in our mission to operate in an economical manner and staying close to and not significantly undervaluing our services and keeping within the market range.
Staying with the tip fee at the MRF, are there any questions on that particular item? Again, this is early in the process, but I think it's important for us to recognize that there is a proposed change in the wind.
And we do have one tip fee contract with Addison County Solid Waste, and we did let them know several months ago that we were anticipating potentially needing to increase to 95. Their budget runs January to December, so they've already passed their budget. So we advised them to budget for 95, knowing that they would have 90 through the rest of this fiscal year, and then their costs would be covered as well for the remainder of the second half of their fiscal year.
Again, thanks. Staying with the tip fee at the MRF. Any other questions on it? Ken Spencer from Charlotte.
Charlotte, thanks. Is there any evidence that anybody shifts their behavior based on the fees, the tip fees,
Haulers, absolutely.
haulers?
Yes, so several years ago, when the Rutland MRF tip fee was just going through the roof, and we didn't have the ability to move that quickly, we saw tons coming up from Bennington County. So it made financial sense for them to completely bypass Rutland, come all the way up here. It was that big of a delta for them. So yes, and trash is a commodity as well. And haulers are free to bring this material wherever they want to, wherever they can get the best price. So yes, there is certainly some sensitivity to that, and we have seen that.
You think there'll be any market pressure to, when we have the new MRF, to bring tons there for environmental reasons? Can we do a better job?
Well, I would hope so. I would certainly hope that would be the case. And I think one of the things that may be a driver for them will be ease in and out. So if it's quicker or easier to access our facility than it is, the current one, the wait times are not there, or whatever it might be, whatever the pressure is there, then we may see some folks choosing us. But because we really are our draw, our MRF shed is the northern part of the state, and really Addison County is that dividing line. So that's where things need to go north or south. So where it makes sense to grab more from the southern part of Addison County, or really now from the northern part of Rutland County, I don't know that we'll grab a lot unless they're expanding their business further into Addison, further into Chittenden. And at that point, it's just, again, a straight business decision. How quick can they turn those trucks around? And that is the key for all haulers, is that swap. So the faster they can get in and out and be back on the road to collect more, that's the driver.
Did I see your hand up? Bryn?
I was curious, thinking about the facilities that are within the state and then out of state, what laws would prohibit I guess any of the materials going to out of state recycling facilities, assuming that there are some in, not too far from the border in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York.
Yeah, so the state does not regulate the flow of recycling materials. Trash is also another issue, but haulers are free to bring it anywhere. So there absolutely is a material that from the southern part of the state that's going into New Hampshire, more likely, and some might go to Massachusetts, but I don't know that too many, like from Brattleboro, are bringing it down to Springfield, which would be the next closest MRF. But certainly along the New Hampshire border, yes, which again makes a lot of sense. I don't know if folks are going to come up 89 to come to us, but we wouldn't say no. One of the things that we will want to be doing is to reaching out to our our closest sister districts and seeing if there's anything similar deal that we might want to be able to work out with them, similar to Addison County. Addison is a little bit different because they own the transfer station, and they can really control that. A couple of the other districts have a similar situation, but they might be a little further away. So that would be where the opportunity would be to secure some more out of district tons. But as far as flowing in and out, we wouldn't say no to New York tons. It's just hard to get here from yeah, exactly. But the price is right, and it makes sense for them, or if they're expanding their business into Vermont. Certainly, there are no prohibitions from our perspective or the states on receiving that material.
David?
Aside from the Rutland MRF and our MRF, how many other MRFs are there in the state?
Just us.
Okay.
Just we two. That's it. And that's why you'll see material on the other side of the Green Mountains going over to New Hampshire.
So I want to bring the discussion over to another variable that's somewhat under our control, and that would be the organics recycling, the ORF, the organics recycling facility.
Our compost site, yes.
Tip fee
Yeah.
from $70 to $74 a ton.
And Dan Goosen does a great job as well of taking the temperature of the regional market and making sure that we are well within the affordability in the region. And as we noted in the memo, this is the first increase in 3 fiscal years. So he balances that with sale of materials and again with trying to make sure that his operation can get as close to break even as possible, which we saw that he was able to last year. So his economics are showing that is what makes sense at this point. He'll continue to refine. He did refine his sales numbers as well, and I'd have to double check and go back and talk with them to see about the pressures that maybe the Gardner supply issue may have caused on maybe his level of confidence of selling through material. He is introducing a new product this year, that you'll see that in the budget as well. So there's another stream of revenue from that product. It's a leaf and yard product. So that's a new thing that we've got going on too. But so that is again directly related to regional like operations market pressure. Again, we don't want to be so far under the market that we're adversely affecting others.
Questions about then the tip fee at the ORF? And then I'm ready to move on quickly, just bringing focus again to the average commodity rate. I think you've already covered it. There's some softness in the market, but just wanted to give us the opportunity to understand that more, ask questions, express opinions. I know I, for one, in past budget cycles, have been pushing you to say, goose that rate up, because the evidence seemed to me to be that there was strong support for a higher price, and that seems not to have been borne out. So, and perhaps the rest of the finance committee also last time around was encouraging that higher rate.
And 18 months ago, that was the case.
That was the case.
Yeah, and so as John said, we are seeing a softening. The good news though, is that our material we are always able to sell our material. So we do not have trouble moving our material to market, which has been the case in other down markets as well. The question is, how long will this down market be? There's some consensus, as much as there can be, that certain commodities have bottomed out. I'm not quite sure that that's the case because we have seen these commodities go lower. However, there's some feeling that we'll start to see a little bit of climbing, for example, in PET. Cardboard is still okay, which is interesting. The previous dive was in the fiber market, and we were paying to get rid of our paper. That's not the case this time around. The issues are all in plastics. So these things are cyclical, as I think this board well knows, and it will pick back up again. It's just general sense in the global economy of uncertainty and volatility. The price of oil is also fairly affordable. So where that is the case, then the cost of buying recycled plastics, it just doesn't make economic sense. So if the price of oil were to go up, then we would see higher value on the recycled plastics, and that's economics 101.
And the product that we produce and sell is all going to be coming out of the old MRF. None of this is out of the higher quality material coming out of the new MRF.
No, and that won't be factored in until fiscal 28.
Kennigan.
Is there any budgeting thoughts for new materials, new lines, textiles, styrofoam? Are those things all going to be losers when we start?
Not in this MRF. So this MRF is current status quo. We are moving textiles, but they don't go into the MRF. That's a separate drop off anyway. And film is, you really don't want to collect it at a MRF. You don't want any tanglers to get into your equipment. So if we were to add film, it would also be a drop off. If we were to add foam, it would be a drop off. So when the new MRF is online, we will have the space to be able to consolidate and to store such materials if we want to add new products until we create enough for a load. And that has also been a challenge. We don't have the room to create the bales and to store the bales because those products, foam and film, likely would take a year to generate enough for a full load. And we don't have the space. But that's the goal of the new MRF.
Hmm.
It's a little preview of what maybe.
Great. And then the last item that I wanted to bring
Yes.
up for the board's attention then would be the solid waste management fee.
Right.
Just to remind us all the change that we authorized and the increase that we authorized, and then the new methodology, just to
Right.
make it totally clear for the board and the public to understand what's going on.
Yes, and this is the first budget utilizing the new methodology that the board approved earlier this year. And so we were intending to look at the October numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. As I think we're all aware, no numbers were released, which points to concern that Bert brought up in the conversation about this change. So we looked to the September numbers, and we looked at both the CPI and the garbage index, and those are the two that are authorized for us to review in this new methodology. I'm hopeful that there will be numbers released as of January, and we will take another look at those two figures in January, bring those two options to the Finance Committee for their review. Staff will need to make the pitch for an increase if we feel that there is a need for an increase. And then the Finance Committee will be able to evaluate both of those numbers, both the Northeast Urban CPI, Consumer Price Index, and the garbage index. Garbage index always tends to be running a little bit higher because it is again specific to our industry. The CPI is across all industries. So that's why it's more of an aggregated, blended number.
Any questions about the
As the treasurer, I'll just mention that when the Finance Committee meets in February to consider the budget, of course, it's an open meeting, and we welcome anybody who might have a burning interest in it and have good questions. We do frequently have members who are not part of the committee attend, and they ask great questions. So we welcome that, of course. So
and the Finance Committee and staff goes through the budget just about line by line. I mean, it is every program, and it is a thorough 6 to 7 hour meeting. So if you do want to attend, it prepares all day, we will feed you, and there will be breaks. But it is a very, very thorough examination of the budget.
So leveraging that, the next part of this, and I don't know, John, if you were going to address it, there's a lot of numbers in here, but we understand that that's all going to be reworked.
Right.
I don't know if you had any further intent to walk us through any of those numbers, or if there's any burning desire.
I
on the
was
part of the
not.
commissioners.
I was gonna open up for any specific questions. There's a ton of data there, right?
And there's plenty of time also to keep looking at this. So if next week, next month, you have to spot something, reach out to John and to me and to Paul Stabler and say, oh, is this going to be addressed, or I need more information on X. We are more than happy to have that conversation, and then the Finance Committee Chair, Treasurer, can bring that to the committee as well. And say, oh, I heard from Betsy, I heard from Ken, I heard from someone, that this was something they want more information about.
Bryn, go ahead.
I would only say that one thing that is potentially noteworthy for select board members and council members is that not only is there not going to be a municipal assessment anticipated, but that the community cleanup fund allotments will not be changing. I think there tends to be an underutilization of that, and moving that conversation up earlier into the budget planning and forecasting, which happens, December through most of January, could be helpful in highlighting that the funds are there. And that members of this board that may not be in a council or select board position have an easier time pushing ahead projects because it's already on the radar of staff and of those elected officials. So just those being, two noteworthy things that I think towns would be interested in hearing.
That's a great suggestion, particularly because the Community Cleanup Fund is a reimbursement fund.
Yep.
So your municipalities do need to budget something, but then it will be reimbursed, but you've got to spend it first and then we pay you back.
Yep.
So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Just a follow-up to that is, So I was able to work something out in our town so that I could kind of track the requests and then the reimbursements. But I was just wondering if something could be done on this end that like the commissioner could just be CC'd when a disbursement is made.
Oh, sure, sure.
Because, I mean, now I'm getting emails from all sorts of finance people and things, but, which is fine, but I was just thinking of, an easier way could have just been every time you guys issue reimbursement, CC the commissioner, and then we're just able to track. what's going
Sure,
on.
absolutely, that's easy.
Okay, thank you.
So further discussion on the budget. Again, I point out, I believe what we're seeing here is that no assessments to the towns. This will be welcome news. We do have a request then, if there's no other conversation on this presentation. There is a proposed motion.
Be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners acknowledges the receipt of a proposed fiscal year 2027 budget to be further developed through the normal budget process.
So moves up Burlington.
Second shot.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we acknowledge receipt of a proposed fiscal year 2027 budget. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
Just to wake us
The
up.
motion carries and we acknowledge receipt of the budget.
Great, thank you very much.
Excellent, and the hard work will begin. Again, just to reiterate this, if you want to understand what really is going on in the district, come to that budget meeting. Participate in that. There's a lot of great questions that come up. It's not all numbers. There are.
Can you
issues
remind
that come
me
up.
which day is that? I just want to make sure I have it correctly in my calendar.
February 19th.
Sit, nope.
February 11th.
11.
February 11th. It is a Wednesday.
Perfect, it is in my calendar.
Great, we will now move on to item number 6 in the agenda, the solid waste implementation plan. Joey.
So this is, we brought up the solid waste implementation plan at the last meeting. And this is just to have the board approve the plan as it is written, the 2025 plan. And once the board approves the plan, it will be submitted to A&R for final approval, and then implementation will begin on January 1. Does anyone at this point have any questions, comments, or concerns about the plan? I didn't receive anything from the board in between from the last meeting, so I have nothing new to add.
I guess
Bryn, go ahead.
yeah, if I may, I neglected to do my research on this. I apologize. Can you just elaborate the structure where it captures waste prevention work?
Sure. I can certainly go through. So, I mean, the prevention, I guess there's so many various elements. So part of our outreach team that works with businesses, schools, towns, and events, all of that outreach is with a focus on educating people to reduce waste and educating them on what needs to happen.
We've also done some public communication in the forms of postcards. We would do a lot of our social media work with food scraps in particular on how to reduce making food scrap waste. That has been a big focus of last year, and we're going to be continuing that focus as well. So that waste reduction piece, again, has been mostly centered on food scraps, just because that is still the largest chunk of disposed material that we feel we can have a big impact on. So those efforts are, again, they are in person, as Joey said, but also social media, postcards, newsletter, our blog. Those are kind of the 5 areas where we focus on waste reduction for that particular material.
And those are specific elements of the SWIP. So we have a print outreach section, and we have requirements for print outreach. We have requirements for digital outreach as well, the in-person outreach. Also our drop-off centers and our depot, providing those, having specific areas that people can sort properly is something.
Yeah,
that
I'm less
comes
interested on the sorting and
Okay.
disposal side of things, more on the prevention upstream side of things.
Yeah, not creating it in the first place.
Right.
through. Yeah, and that all comes through the outreach requirements in the SWIP.
So no particular programming, primarily just education.
Yeah, the SWIP, so with the SWIP is basically just the state telling us we have to do this.
Yep.
And all of the other work that we do at CSWD that isn't in the SWIP, ideas, pilot programs, things like that, that's what we get to do outside of our SWIP requirements. So this is just minimally what we have to do for the state. But then there are things that we can do outside of the SWIP that we have a lot more freedom to work on.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, just to make sure I'm understanding this, what's articulated in here is how you're meeting the state minimums, but you're not including things that go above and beyond.
Correct.
Thank you.
Because if we weren't able to do that for whatever reason, something comes up, then we would fail our SWIP, and that's not an option.
Thank you.
So I have a clarifying question. This is a 5-year plan
Mhm.
essentially, so we are not going to be revisiting this SWIP for 5 more years.
Correct.
So the assumption is then for the next 5 years, we're meeting the minimum state requirements.
Annual reporting.
And before, so the trigger for districts and solid waste management entities to create a solid waste implementation plan is the state revising their materials management plan. So once they do that revision, then we have X number of year or something, or that month, to then revise our own implementation plan in response to any new requirements that are now in the state's materials management plan. And sometimes they are delayed in doing that development.
That never happens.
I mean, every now and then, so it's at least 5 years, but that is based on the state being timely in their own revision.
It also goes through rulemaking.
Yes, which adds time to the state's process.
Further questions on the solid waste implementation plan? There is a requested motion to adopt the 2025 draft solid waste implementation plan as written and to submit it to the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources for final approval. Anybody care to make that motion?
So move South Burlington.
Second, Charlotte.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the draft solid waste implementation plan and submit it to the Agency of Natural Resources. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? The motion is adopted and the plan will be on its way.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you all very much. A lot of hard work that goes into this.
Yes.
Item number 7 on the agenda is the MRF Materials Recovery Facility Project Update. Sarah.
So first and foremost, thank you to all the commissioners who were able to attend our groundbreaking. It was a wonderful event, and I was really pleased with the press that were able to come, and that we had Secretary Julie Moore there. So thank you all very much for sharing in that. It's been a long time coming, and I appreciate very much the board's support over the years in getting this project literally off the ground or in the ground to get us moving. So we are moving ahead. Our project manager has moved her office to across the street. She is now going to be based in the compost facility as well, so that she can be closer to the action and be able to go over there every day and check up on things. So we have someone actively there. That is Kaylee Barber. That's still her main area of focus is on this project. And so really there's not much more to update on that. Oh, no, there actually is, sorry. So we received, in regards to archaeological studies that may, potentially need to be required of us if we ever had to get an Act 250 permit for this site. We had a desktop review done, and another benefit of moving the building is that we're further away from the area that they initially a year or so ago were possibly a little bit concerned that it might be sensitive. So we have the report that says that we are not near any sensitive area for that site. And because we were already avoiding the main wetland on the area, that is also not a factor because there could be some other indigenous materials around a wetland or certainly around a river source. And because we're further away from both, that we are out of the danger of any archaeological issues. So that is an update, I guess. I did have an update for you. So that was good news. Great news. Yeah.
Paul Stabler.
Question and a comment.
Okay.
Question, have they started pouring concrete yet?
Good question. I don't, Joe's saying no.
Didn't look like it today.
Okay.
Not today.
Didn't look like it today, but that is the goal
Yeah.
for the very near future.
Okay. And just a comment, thank you to staff for putting the tent up, otherwise during the speeches, we'd have all gotten soaked.
Yes,
So that
indeed.
was great.
Yes, and to say that our REARC, our construction partner, was very, very helpful in pulling all of that together, and that was their tent. So we didn't have to
Oh,
spend any money on the tent, we didn't have to spend any money on the shovels, we didn't have to buy the hats. So they were a great partner.
Yeah, I just wanted, Betsy from Milton, just wanted to say, thank you for the shuttles and the parking.
Yes, yeah.
I was just so impressed with how seamless everything was, and you just made it so easy, in and out, and, so thank you for
Great, thank you.
including us.
So it's not really dealing with the MRF, but the observation about where we parked.
Oh, yes. So you may have seen our old office building there when you went to the event. It is no longer there.
Really?
So it has been taken down, and so now that's, and 1043, the house next door. So those buildings are gone. They are now history.
Where did the rodents go?
They gotta fend for themselves. They gotta fend for themselves now, no longer shelter.
That's great. Excellent.
Other questions for Sarah on the MRF project?
Where do we stand in terms of taking delivery of the equipment that's been in storage?
Yeah, so it is still on track as long as soon as the slab is built and then they can start, putting together the rest of the superstructure. That really dictates the schedule for the installation of the equipment. However, we are still on track for what we had told VHS, which was next July. So at that point, if they're able to start installation, then what happens is they then basically parse it out. So it doesn't all come to us as one, so we will still be needing storage until everything is kind of exhausted. So they'll bring it in stages. Here's the first stage that goes in, and then they know what's coming for the next 2 weeks, and then they time that out. So next July is our goal for beginning that installation at the latest. It could be June, but next July is that's kind of when we say we need to get going. And it's an 8 to 12 week installation. So through the summer, next summer, they'll be putting the guts in. And then for the rest of the fall, we'll be doing the acceptance testing. So bringing loads in from the old MRF and slowly kind of decommissioning that facility.
And do I recall correctly that we're now paying them for storage?
We are,
But it's being stored there.
correct. Yeah, and they took care of the storage, the insurance, all of that good stuff.
I knew something was changing and I couldn't remember exactly what it was. Thank you.
Other question for Sarah on the MRF? Great. Well, we look forward to, again, every month we'll hopefully be getting an update as where things stand.
And I will attempt to bring some photos as well and just kind of let folks know.
Excellent.
So you can see it, maybe put those in the packet. So I will talk to Keely about that.
Or if you use the Williston Drop-Off Center.
Yeah, you.
I was gonna
It's
say,
visible from the
David, you
road.
could send us photos.
Yes,
Right.
that's the fun.
We'll see the progress for sure.
All right, then let's move on to item number 8, which is just a remembrance and acknowledgement of the passing of former Commissioner Bert Lindholm from Jericho. I'd like Sarah to provide some background information, especially for newer commissioners who may not have ever met Bert.
Yeah. And Bert was a hard guy to miss. He was very striking in stature, quite tall, had a booming voice, and really was a gentle giant. He was a sweetheart. He joined the board in the early days of the district in the early 1990s, and was very, very involved all along. He sat on the executive board over several terms. And he was very, very involved in his community of Jericho. And he, provided great insights, and he graciously transitioned back to alternate when, a certain time when Leslie came on as well. But still remained very, very active for a very long time. Paul, you served with Bert for many years.
Bert was, like you said, a gentle giant, but his questions were always very good, very thoughtful, and made you think. And he worked with me on a revision to the host town agreement, and that worked out real well. So I was grateful for his experience and guidance on that. So yeah, good man. He will be missed for sure.
Loss to the community.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you for the acknowledgement of his passing, the contributions that he made to the district. We're now ready to move on to other business. Is there any other business to bring before the Board of Commissioners tonight? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moves, Burlington.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. The next meeting is also
December,
a week earlier than normal.
correct.
Don't have the date, but just keep that in mind.
Keep in
Watch your
mind.
email.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
All right, everybody have a great Thanksgiving, please. Travel safely if you
I just
are.
have to make sure that I